Hi, I'm Scoot, and welcome to the Scoot on the Air YouTube channel. This is Scoot on the Air YouTube. And again, I want to remind you, which is Scoot on the Air. And we're starting to add stuff to that. All this is an extension of my radio show on WWL, AM, FM, and radio.com. And I appreciate those of you who are listening around the country to my show, and those of you who tune into this as well. Please share this. I hope you become a subscriber. It's free. When you subscribe, we give you an alert every time we post something, which right now is Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And this is another episode of The Truth Behind the Microphone. And what I try to do is, in the years that I've spent behind the microphone in music radio and talk radio, the times that I've spent behind the camera on television, I want to share some of the truth behind the microphone. Because America is generally misinformed when it comes to what really goes on. And so many people think they know, and they have no freaking clue. Zero. Oh, by the way, can you say President Kanye West? Yeah, Kanye West says he's really serious. He says he's running for president. He's not a Trump supporter anymore. He says he lost respect for President Trump when he found out that when the riots were getting rough in Washington, D.C. and close to the White House, when the protesting and the riots got rough, the president went into an underground bunker. Now, the president denies it, but I don't know. I mean, you can't believe everything the president says. Oh, I know. I said something offensive there, didn't I? Well, the truth behind the microphone tonight is going to deal with conservative listeners. Now, there are liberal listeners that are wacky too. But since I'm not a conservative and I'm on talk radio, people freak out. They freak the F out. Because some people have this idea that conservative ideology owns talk radio. No, the First Amendment owns talk radio. So I get attacked by a lot of conservatives, right-wing conservatives, who are vocal. So anyway, so yeah, Kanye West says he's running for president. He's not happy with President Trump anymore. And I guess what I was trying to say is that when the president says something, you can't necessarily believe him. I mean, let's admit that. That's not my opinion. That is an actual fact. And so if the president says, if there are reports out that he didn't go in a bunker, and he says, I didn't go in a, if there are reports that he went into a bunker, and he says, I didn't go in a bunker, well, who do you believe? Again, you pick and choose who you're going to believe with all of that. All right, so today there were two press conferences carried on during my radio show on WWL radio. One from the governor of Louisiana, John Bel Edwards, and another from New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell. They talked about communal spread. COVID-19 is spreading around the country, in Louisiana, and in New Orleans. It's spreading rapidly. Now, there are fewer deaths at this point, and that's good news because a lot of younger people are getting it. They could be walking around, though, as potential killers because they could be spreading it. So, you know, let's hope that the younger people and everybody who gets sick, let's hope they get well. But this is still a dangerous thing. If people would social distance and wear a mask, more things would be able to open up. But in New Orleans, they're cutting back. For example, in New Orleans, no more sitting at the bar. In bars and restaurants that serve alcohol, table seating only. So that's changed. Also, indoor gatherings down from 100 to 25. 100 outdoors, 25 inside. So we are regressing because the numbers are going up. And the information just seems so damn obvious that when we stayed at home, the spread went way down. Numbers were under control. And now since Memorial Day, and now with 4th of July last weekend, people are more active. But here's what happens with a lot of conservative listeners. They immediately say, why does nobody talk about the protesters? I can't speak for everybody in the media, but I talk about the protesters. I've talked about how the protesters have contributed to the spread of COVID-19. Many are wearing masks, but many are not wearing masks, and many are not social distancing. But stop focusing on that, because it's not just that. And in New Orleans, there haven't been protests in several weeks. So the spread that's going on now is not necessarily the result of the protesters, but it's also the result of people who go into bars and people who socialize. And hardcore conservative radio listeners, they don't want to accept this idea. They want to defend the small businesses. And they say, well, how come nobody mentions the protesters? Well, I mentioned the protesters. I can't speak for everybody else. The protesters have contributed, but so have the small businesses. So have the people who have gone out and not practiced social distancing and not worn a mask. So it's almost like in defense of this, in defense of the small businesses and people just gathering out and doing normal things, let's blame the protesters. You can't do that. And then you've got this Republican state representative here in Louisiana from the northern part of the state. And I actually talked to him on my radio show today. Representative Danny McCormack. Danny McCormack did a video, and he said that being told to not wear a mask violates your constitutional rights. I'm sorry, being told to wear a mask violates your constitutional rights. And he said the Constitution is being shredded before our very eyes. And he took a chainsaw and he shredded it right there on his video. Shredded a mask. So look, here's a guy who's saying that people who are not wearing masks are being persecuted, and soon it's going to get to the point where they're going to be like the Jews during the Holocaust. I gave him a chance to explain that on the show today, and he explained that he was just talking about people being persecuted. But I mean, when are people going to start realizing that it's just stupid to reference the Holocaust? It's stupid to reference Hitler. Stop freaking doing it. It's not going to go well. And yet people still do it. Amazing to me. Yeah, here's a comment says he was nuts. Another comment from Shatney. I'm tired of irresponsible people. Yeah, well, so am I. Let's just be responsible. And wearing a mask is not that big a deal. I know you can come up with whatever excuses you want, but it's really not that big a deal. And there are a few people who cannot wear them for medical reasons. I respect that. But it's interesting to me how listeners will focus on one thing. And I'll tell you what's happening with what's happening with radio and what's happening with social media is you have people picking up conservative talking points and then just repeating the talking points. They're not thinking, they're just repeating the talking points. They pick it up from their heroes in right-wing media and they just repeat it. Like with the protest. I can see that this is a pattern now. Yeah, well, how come they never blame the protesters? Or last week it was, if we have to wear a mask, we're losing our rights. No, we're not. The other thing that was really hypocritical about Representative McCormack, and look, this is a state representative. He's not like a congressman. But Representative McCormack said, and think about this coming from a hardcore pro-choice, I'm sorry, a hardcore pro-life candidate, anti-abortion. He said, when it comes to the mask, your body is your private property. How does that go with the anti-abortion movement of you can't do whatever you want with your body? Oh, I know you think it's a baby. Well, if you spent as much time as those opposed to those who are opposed to abortion, if they spent as much time focusing on trying to change the definition of life in the medical community, then they'd be a lot further along than just trying to say stupid stuff and outrageous stuff about abortion. I am anti-abortion, but I'm pro-choice. And you shouldn't have a problem with that because you can be both. I can be anti-abortion, but it's not my job to tell a woman at that point in a pregnancy what she can do with her body because it's her body. So, here's the truth behind the microphone, dealing with this stuff. And it's so much easier, and I'm going to want your help on this. It's so much easier to get on the air and to pull a Tucker Carlson. It's easier to get on the air and follow along with State Representative McCormack in Louisiana and say, that's right, man, we shouldn't be forced to wear masks. It's violating our constitutional rights. We should be able to do whatever we want with our bodies. It's our body. It's our private property. And you know what? We're being persecuted. My God, for 1 second, if you just even give any credence to the idea that being persecuted for not wearing a friggin' mask somehow relates to the Jews during the Holocaust, that's absurd. I even had somebody attack me today on the show with a text challenging me. How do I even know Jews are offended? I don't know if Jews are offended. I'm offended. I'm offended that somebody would equate the little resistance that people who are not wearing masks are getting with people who are burned and gassed and murdered in mass numbers. As a human being, you can't even bring that up, but he did. And so when you listen to talk radio, listen to the talking points. When you watch Fox News, listen for the talking points, and you'll hear those parroted back, just regurgitated from listeners. Again, picking up on the talking points. So here's a fact. Those who oppose me, those who don't agree with me on the air. Look, a lot of people disagree with me, but they love the show. And I appreciate that. And that's the greatest compliment I get. Hey, Scoot, don't always agree with you, but I love your show. And that's a tremendous compliment to me. But those who oppose me are conservatives. Every once in a while, somebody will say that I'm too conservative, and that's coming from somebody who obviously is very, very liberal. So those who oppose me, want to attack me, and they're very loud and they're very noisy, but they don't reflect the entire audience. So here's why I've established this radio show where I call myself a radical moderate. I'm a registered independent. I don't belong to either political tribe. I'm not playing political tribalism. I'll attack both sides. Yeah, if Biden gets elected, I've said this before, he's going to say stupid stuff. He already has. And there's some Trump commercials that show a really bad side of Joe Biden. And once again, the Democrats don't have a really strong candidate. We'll talk about that another time. But the point is, moderates don't make as much noise, and we don't really have to. I mean, we make more noise at the polls in voting. But it would really be nice if some of you who are more moderate, those of you who are Republicans and Democrats that are not far right and far left, it would be great if you would become a little more vocal to just drown out the sycophants on the right. Drown out those who think their voice is the only voice. And I love the people, this is another episode of The Truth Behind the Microphone. I love the people that say that I shouldn't have an opinion on the air, that I should be unbiased, I should be objective. These are people who love Rush and Hannity. Well, they're doing the same thing I'm doing. They just have right-wing views and I don't. Some of my views are very, very conservative. Smaller government, lower taxes, welfare reform, personal responsibility in every aspect of life. Yeah, those are conservative views. Strong military. But man, I'm for equality. And if you're for equality, you are not conservative in the minds of many. Many conservatives, many Republicans are conservative. Elizabeth said, like parrots. Yes, Elizabeth, they are like parrots. Debbie says, you definitely can be both. Oh yeah, you can be anti-abortion and pro-choice. I'm glad you appreciate that, Debbie, because a lot of people go, no, I mean, people think you have to be one way or the other. You know, and that's why people have a hard time with, wait, you're not a Republican and you're not a Democrat. You're not liberal and you're not conservative. Well, then what are you? Hey, you know what? I'm a radical moderate. And I use the term radical because I have opinions and strong conviction when it comes to every topic. Maybe a few I don't, but most topics, I've got strong conviction. But I don't see everything through the same myopic political perspective as the right or the left. And so many on the right and the left are total hypocrites. They act like they're one way without. So anyway, in sharing this truth behind the microphone and how talk radio listeners pick up talking points from Fox News and Limbaugh and Hannity and other conservatives, and they just repeat them. And then there are conservative talk show hosts all across this country doing the same thing. They're picking up those talking points and they're just parroting the talking points. And everybody's cheering. But people don't really take time to think about the issue. And a lot of people are allowing themselves to be irrationally frightened by things that shouldn't frighten you. All right, I'm going to let it go here. Thank you all for your comments tonight. I hope you subscribe. If you haven't, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You know, we're working on a little set. I've got some stuff coming in, so we're going to have a little set here at some point. And, you know, when this coronavirus pandemic calms down and I can have guests, well, I'll have guests on the YouTube channel. And it just gives me a chance to extend my radio show, which is WWL 870 AM 105.3 FM in New Orleans and the Gulf South. It's also on radio.com. So download the app radio.com, type in WWL, and my name is Scoot, and I'm on the air from 1 to 4 Central Time every afternoon, Monday through Friday. And I post other things here on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, also Scoot on the air. By the way, I'm continuing to talk about this just briefly. A couple of people have commented on the fact that they think I wear dentures. And I guess some people don't get out very much. And I think they're trying to criticize me. I do not wear dentures. Um, President Trump, his kids, Melania, John Bon Jovi, they don't have dentures, but they have a nice smile. And I was fortunate enough to go to a dentist here in New Orleans, Dr. Dwayne DeLon Dental, and I thank him for my beautiful smile. But these are not dentures. Just want to set the record straight on those who are trying to criticize me over something that is simply not true. Anyway, I'm Scoot. Thanks for being with me. Have a great night.